Good morning, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. Trump says Israel agrees to an initial withdrawal line for Gaza. US envoys head to West Asia to finalize hostage release details. Anti-ICE protest in Chicago, Illinois, Portland, Oregon. In Chicago, federal agents shoot woman after convoy ramps officers, while in Portland, judge temporarily blocks use of National Guard. Syrian electors cast ballot in indirect vote for first post-Assad parliament. Results expected by later tonight. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to make first official visit to India coming week to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Mumbai. India-UK comprehensive strategic partnership in focus. And in the Women's Cricket World Cup, India looks to continue unbeaten run as they face Pakistan in a high-voltage clash in Colombo. US President Donald Trump has said Israel agreed to an initial withdrawal line for Gaza, which has also been shared with Hamas. In a social media post on Saturday, Trump says, and I quote, "After negotiations, Israel has agreed to the initial withdrawal line, which we have shown to and shared with Hamas. When Hamas confirms the ceasefire will immediately be effective, the hostages and prisoner exchange will begin. We will create conditions for the next phase of withdrawal, which will bring us close to the end of this 3,000-year catastrophe." Thank you for your attention to this matter. Earlier, Trump expressed appreciation that Israel has temporarily stopped the bombing in order to give the hostage release and peace deal a chance to be completed. He mentioned that Hamas must move quickly or else all bets will be off. He says, "I will not tolerate delay, which many think will happen, or any outcome where Gaza poses a threat again. Let's get this done fast." However, the Enclave Civil Defense Agency said that Israel carried out dozens of attacks on Gaza City overnight. Meanwhile, Trump's son-in-law and senior envoy were heading to Egypt on Saturday to finalize hostage release details. According to White House official Jared Kushner, and Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff are traveling to the region to address the finalization of details on the release of hostages and to discuss the deal pushed by the US president. Egypt will also host delegations from Israel and Hamas on Monday. This is according to the country's foreign ministry. And also came a statement from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, who said that his country is on the verge of a very significant achievement. He hopes to announce the return of hostages held by Hamas soon, although negotiations are not final yet. Netanyahu said in a video statement that he was hopeful he will announce the return of all the hostages, both the living and the fallen. He added that the Israeli army will hold all areas that control the depth of the Gaza Strip, and that in the second phase, Hamas will be disarmed and the Gaza Strip will be demilitarized. And DD India correspondent Akshay Dongre joins us live with more. Akshay, with Israel agreeing to the initial withdrawal line for Gaza, what are the chances of this peace deal working out?
Well, it seems that with the threat that unless Hamas agrees to the ceasefire, all hells will break loose, the kind of threat that came from the US president, finally there is enough pressure, it seems, not only just on Hamas, but also the countries that have hosted Hamas, that have supported Hamas. It's so much that, finally, almost all the parties seem to be agreeing that, the war needs to be over, and, the hostages need to be returned. However, the problem remains with the fact that Donald Trump claims that the 3,000-year-old conflict is going to come to an end. That remains a far-fetched claim because it's just a prisoner exchange that is taking place right now. the issues, the basic issues, the problem about land and about who is the original person from this land that has been claimed by both the sides, by the Palestinians and the Israelis. That still continues. So the fundamental issues are there. So to claim that the issues will get resolved automatically, that seems incorrect, and that incorrect, and that all these claims also seem quite far fetched. However, what is another thing that is problematic is about the participation of Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Donald Trump, in such a complicated matter. You have Steve Witkoff, your envoy for the West Asia region. However, the participation of Jared Kushner doesn't make sense at this point in time, especially because the lives of so many people are at stake. The third problematic thing that remains in this claim and the kind of ceasefire that is being implemented is about the warnings that are coming in from Israel, that they will be using force, or they will be using any method that is available to them to disarm Hamas, as well as the continuous strikes that are taking place by the Israeli Defense Forces, even after the warnings, from Donald Trump. So it seems clearly Israel, though is agreeing to the ceasefire, though is agreeing to halting of operation and withdrawing from a certain line, it is not, it seems, at least on the ground, in sync with the claims that are being made that there will be peace and peace will prevail after the ceasefire, because they are clearly issuing threats even before the ceasefire gets implemented.
Right, and all eyes for now on Egypt, where delegations from the US, Israel and Hamas are likely to finalize hostage and prisoner swap on Monday.
Well, Shubhendu, it also seems a tad bit of oversimplification to say, to assume, because we all have been doing that for now 2 years, to hope that a party is going to end the conflict, because there are so many parties involved. There is Iran involved with its Hezbollah. There's Qatar involved, that was hosting Hamas since the conflict started. We saw how the spillover started from the very beginning, when the Yemeni forces also got involved in this. Yes, Egypt is a party to it, but Egypt's own credibility has been tarnished with this entire conflict, with Egypt not allowing many of the civilian population, or rather the refugees, to enter its borders. Many a times Egypt has also not played a very constructive role in allowing aid material to get inside Palestine, and Gaza especially. Yes, Egypt is a main party to it. Yes, US is placing all its bets on Egypt, and assuming that it is going to help in ending the conflict, but it's just quite complicated at this time. And any kind of hasty ceasefire cannot be long-lived, because the situation is so complicated and so old. It's decades, or rather millennia old, as far as this problem is concerned. You really need to give it time. You also need to give dialogue a chance, at a proper level. So while if you're giving Israel a chance to express its opinion, you also have to go and speak to the Gazans who have been suffering the most. You also have to speak, you also have to speak to Hamas about their plans for disarming themselves, and whether they are even willing to do it. So yes, ceasefire is a great news for the rest of the world, for the entire world, in fact. But a hasty ceasefire may just backfire and may just be temporary in nature.
Right, Akshay, thank you for joining us with those insights and updates. Meanwhile, global leaders continue to call for dialogue and end to violence as attention shifts to implementing the Gaza peace plan, securing a lasting resolution through ceasefire and humanitarian access. More in this report.
Global support for Gaza peace plan surged on Saturday after Hamas announced its decision to accept parts of US proposed Gaza peace plan. Leaders from across the globe, including European Union chief to French President Macron and country heads of UK, Spain, Canada, Australia and Germany, welcomed the move as a crucial step toward lasting peace. India also voiced strong support for the Gaza peace plan, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised its progress. In a post on X, PM Modi wrote that we welcome President Trump's leadership as peace efforts in Gaza make decisive progress. Indications of the release of hostages mark a significant step forward, India will continue to strongly support all efforts towards a durable and just peace. Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, encouraged Hamas's recent decision, expressing support for all initiatives aimed at preventing further suffering. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk described Trump's Gaza peace plan as a vital opportunity to stop the long-standing conflict once and for all. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called for an immediate ceasefire, while French President Emmanuel Macron termed it an opportunity to make decisive progress towards peace. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Prime Ministers of UK, Canada and Australia echoed their commitment to end the conflict and to work towards peace and security in the region with a sustainable two-state solution. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan lauded Hamas's response and urged Israel to stop its military operations.
We welcome the response that Hamas gave to Mr. Trump's peace plan. As it has done so many times in the past, Hamas has shown it is ready for peace.
Qatar and Egypt also hailed the move, urging a ceasefire, the release of hostages and humanitarian aid. The widespread international reaction to Hamas's announcement has sparked a wave of optimism, with leaders urging all parties to seize this rare window of opportunity to bring a definitive end to the over 2-year-long conflict. Bureau Report, DD India.
In other news, anti-ICE protests emerged in US states of Chicago, Illinois, Memphis and Portland. Tensions rise in Chicago and downtown Memphis as protesters rally against President Trump's plan to deploy the National Guard and federal agencies to these cities. Donald Trump authorized sending 300 National Guard troops to Chicago amid growing unrest. US President has vowed to escalate immigration enforcement in Chicago and other democratic strongholds that limit cooperation with federal operations. The protest intensified after US Border Patrol personnel shot a woman in Chicago after the convoy rammed officers. No law enforcement officers were seriously injured during the confrontations. ICE agents used pepper spray and rubber bullets to try to disperse protesters, escalating the situation further. Tensions escalated on the streets of Oregon's Portland as demonstrators clashed with law enforcement near an ICE facility. A federal judge temporarily blocked US President Trump from deploying 200 Oregon National Guard troops to the city of Portland, while a lawsuit challenging the move plays out. The ruling by US District Judge Karen Immergut in Portland is a setback for Trump as he seeks to dispatch the military to cities he describes as lawless over their objections to their Democratic leaders by them. Portland officials said Trump administration was threatening to withhold federal funding from the city without formal notice or justification. A Democrat Portland mayor, Keith Wilson, has warned move would siphon vital funding from economy during government shutdown that is already hurting cities like ours across the nation. As with other states, most federal aid to Oregon helps fund healthcare, education and transportation infrastructure. And still to come on DD India News Hour. In Czech Republic, billionaire Andres Babis has won the parliamentary election. Anti-government Gen Z protest in Madagascar. And Egypt opens Pharaoh Amenhotep's tomb for tourists.
Whenever we think of scientists, farmers or shepherds protecting our environment, but the reality is quite different. Across the world, women have often done the quiet, hidden, silent work of protecting our planet.
We've also noticed that because we had a kind of a model farm where we grew multiple crops, farmers around have also started doing that.
In the beginning, it was frightening. I went door to door sharing the idea. I trusted in our sisterhood. Some agreed to work.
A generational change is very important for us because the mountain villages of the Apennines are suffering from strong out-migration and the population is aging.
The main objective of integrated waste management through this program is to recover voluntary donations from vendors that are still fit for human consumption and have nutritional value.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. European interior ministers are meeting in Munich today to discuss the anti-drone defences. The meeting, originally billed as a migration summit, was seen shifting gear after suspected drones forced second closure of the Munich airport in 24 hours. A series of incidents involving drones disrupted aviation across Europe in recent weeks. On Thursday, authorities in Belgium were also investigating sightings of some 15 drones above the Elsborn military site near German border. Recent drone sightings across EU prompted Leaders Summit in Copenhagen earlier this week. Several EU member states have backed plans for multi-layered drone wall to quickly detect, track and destroy drones allegedly from Russia. Russia, however, denies any involvement. Lithuania's Vilnius airport reopened on Sunday after hours-long closure after suspecting hot air balloons flying in its airspace. Vilnius airport said it had received official information on Saturday that air traffic is being temporarily suspended. The shutdown affected at least 10 flights, with several planes, including from London, Frankfurt and Vienna, rerouted to the Latvian capital, Riga. One from Copenhagen was forced to turn back, while a scheduled departure to Helsinki was cancelled. Airports of other European countries like Germany, Denmark, Norway and Poland recently suspended flights due to an unidentified drones, while Romania and Estonia have pointed the finger at Russia, which has brushed off the allegations. The incident came after drone sightings this week caused Munich airport to shut down twice in as many days. Moving on, Syria is holding parliamentary elections on Sunday, marking the country's first attempt at establishing a new legislative body since the fall of the Assad regime in December last year. Long-term former President Assad was ousted by Shara's forces 10 months ago after a 13-year civil war. The polls are in line with current President Ahmed al-Shara's promise to turn Syria into a democratic, pluralistic and inclusive country. The elections rely on electoral colleges and presidential appointments and not direct public voting. The new 210-member parliament will manage legislation, pass laws, support economic reforms during a 30-month transitional period until a permanent constitution is adopted, which may take up to 3 years. Analysts say direct voting is nearly impossible due to Syria's post-war challenges. Elections on 19 seats have been indefinitely postponed, citing security and political reasons. More election news. In Czech Republic, billionaire Andrej Babiš has won the parliamentary election, although his populist ANO party fell short of an overall majority. ANO party received just under 35% of vote, earning them 80 seats in the 200-seat lower house, up from 72 seats 4 years ago. Babiš, who served as prime minister from 2017 to 21, is expected to be invited to lead talks on forming a new coalition, while Prime Minister Petre Fiala, centre-right Spolo alliance, trailed with 23% of the votes. Thus, shortly after the preliminary results were announced, Fiala conceded defeat, offered congratulations to Babiš. Czech President Petr Pavel, who will tap the next premier under the constitution, says he would start talks with the elected party heads on Sunday. In Malawi, Peter Mutharika was sworn in for a second term as president of the Southern African nation on Saturday. In his inaugural speech, he stated that his administration was taking over a nation facing severe economic crisis, called on the international community to invest. He specifically addressed US President Donald Trump, announcing plans to send a delegation to the United States to discuss Malawi's future. Mutharika also vowed to root out government corruption and rebuild an ailing economy. Mutharika won over 56% of the vote last month, defeating outgoing President Lazarus Chakwera, who received about 33% of the votes. Hundreds of Peruvians marched in Lima to protest against President Dina Boluarte's government on Saturday, expressing discontent over pension reforms, corruption scandals, economic insecurity and rising crime. The demonstration, organized by the youth collective Generation Z, saw mostly young protesters rally outside the Congress of the Republic, displaying banners and signs denouncing criminality, extortion and violence across the country. Recent weeks have witnessed similar marches joined by transport and merchant unions, with some protests escalating into clashes with riot police. Public discontent has grown over corruption, economic decline, and protester deaths following President Bolivar's rise to power in late 2022. In Georgia, the opposition staged a large demonstration on the day of the municipal elections. Shortly before polls closed on Saturday, protesters tried to storm the presidential palace in Tbilisi after opposition calls for a peaceful revolution against the ruling Georgian Dream Party. Riot police used pepper spray, water cannons to disperse them. The party claimed victory in all municipalities in an election boycotted by the main opposition groups. As per the Health Ministry, 21 security personnel and 6 protesters were injured during clashes in central Tbilisi. Pro-Western opposition groups have been holding protests since October last year, alleging fraud in the parliamentary election won by Georgian Dream. Meanwhile, the party denies the accusations. A massive blast followed by gunfire was heard in central Mogadishu on Saturday, near a detention facility where Somalia's intelligence services often hold Islamist Al-Shabaab militants. Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack on the Godka Jilikau detention center near Somalia's presidential palace, involving a suicide bombing and gunfire. The attack is part of a surge in violence by the Al-Qaeda-linked group, which has recaptured many areas since launching an offensive earlier this year. Despite the ongoing unrest and presence of some 10,000 African Union troops, President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud is aiming to hold Somalia's next direct elections next year. Hundreds of protesters gather in Antananarivo, Madagascar, demanding resignation of President Andry Rajoelina. Demonstrators marched towards police barricades in an attempt to reach Democracy Square. Officers rejected the calls for negotiation and dispersed the crowd with tear gas. Tensions escalated, culminating in police pursuit of protesters near the Bafalnana Maternity Hospital. Protests led by online movement known as Gen Z Mada have tapped into widespread frustration over poor governance, with demonstrators calling for President to step down. At least 22 people have been killed, hundreds injured, according to the United Nations, a toll the government has denied as based on rumors or misinformation. "64-year-old conservative leader Sanae Takaichi is set to become Japan's first female prime minister after winning the ruling Liberal Democratic Party's leadership, a landmark moment in the country's male-dominated political history. Takaichi hailed the victory as a new era, also laid out her priorities as the incoming Prime Minister. DD India's Raghav Jha gets us more.
Former Economic Security Minister of Japan, Sanae Takaichi, has been elected the first female president of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party on Saturday. The 64-year-old politician is famous as a hardline leader with focus on national defense and economic security. Once confirmed by the parliament, Takaichi will be the country's first woman prime minister. A vote is expected in Japan's parliament on October 15th to choose a prime minister to replace Shigeru Ishiba. Takaichi hailed a new era on Saturday after winning the leadership of Japan's ruling party, putting her on course to become the country's first woman prime minister. She also outlined her priorities for Japan's economic growth.
The most important thing is to unleash Japan's full potential and achieve economic growth. Without it, we cannot provide the necessary social welfare services or high-quality education. People's daily lives will not improve and everyone will lose their sense of hope. That is why we will prioritize economic growth above all else.
Talking to media persons, Takaichi said that she will make all efforts to ensure that US tariff on Japan is lowered.
Regarding the Japan-US trade deal, we will honor the bilateral agreements that have been reached, including tariffs and investments.
Takaichi earned 185 votes against Koizumi's 156 in a runoff after none of the 5 candidates in the party leadership race secured a majority in the first round of voting. She will serve the remainder of Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's 3-year term through September 2027. Born on March 7, 1961, the Nara prefecture in Japan, Takaichi's mother was a police officer and her father worked in the automotive industry. She graduated from Kobe University in 1984 with a business degree. In 1993, she began her political career and got elected as an independent to the lower parliamentary chamber. Later in 1996, she joined the LDP. During Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's first term, Takaichi served as the Minister of State in 5 portfolios, and in his second term, Takaichi selected for Internal Affairs and Communications Ministry. Takaichi also ran for Prime Minister twice, before in 2021 and in 2024. If elected Prime Minister, Takaichi will face a host of complex issues, including an aging population, geopolitical upheaval, a faltering economy, and growing unease about immigration. However, first of all, she will have to ensure that the LDP, which has governed almost non-stop since 1955, retains voters' trust. Raghav Kumar Jha reports for DD India.
The number of students confirmed dead after collapse of an Islamic boarding school building in Indonesia rose to 36 from 16 a day earlier. Efforts continued for a 7th day to search for the bodies of 27 students still declared missing, mostly teenage boys from age 13 to 19, trapped under the rubble. Cranes have been deployed to excavate debris, while the authorities say search and evacuation efforts were 60% complete. Country's Disaster Mitigation Agency expects to clear all the debris and finish the search on Monday. The Al Khosni school in the town of Sidoarjo in East Java province caved in last Monday, collapsing on top of hundreds of teenage students during afternoon prayers. Its foundations unable to support ongoing construction work on its upper floors. Storm Amy caused widespread damage throughout northern parts of Britain on Saturday, bringing strong winds to Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Emergency services remained on high alert, urging residents to stay indoors and avoid coastal areas as cleanup efforts began. Storm Amy is the latest in a series of extreme weather events to hit the UK this season, raising further concerns about the increasing frequency and severity of storms linked to climate change. Update from China now, where Typhoon Matmo brought torrential rains and strong wind to cities in Hainan and Guangdong provinces as it approached southern coastlines. Authorities cancelled flights and ferries in Hainan before the typhoon hit the southern province, likely disrupting a peak holiday travel period for the resort island. As of Sunday, Matmo was 160 kilometers away from Guangzhou. It was expected to make landfall around noon. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. In northern Chile, the Atacama Desert is currently experiencing a rare natural event known as the flowering desert. The phenomena occurs only in specific years when rainfall and temperature conditions align, triggering the germination of long dormant seeds. The resulting bloom has transformed the arid landscape into a vibrant display of color, drawing attention from both scientists and visitors worldwide. In Luxor, Egypt, the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep III in the Valley of Kings and Queens has been opened for public following more than 2 decades of restoration. The experts from Egypt and UNESCO adhered to cutting-edge conservation standards to preserve its murals and structural integrity. Officials hope the reopening will revive cultural tourism and showcase Egypt's ancient heritage. In Mexico City, the new Museo Casa Carlo, also called Casa Roja, opened in the historic Coacán district. The museum, a family initiative, occupies the Carlo family's ancestral home and focuses on Frida Kahlo's early life, family relationships, unpublished letters, childhood sketches, and personal artifacts. It aims to show a more human and intimate side of Frida rather than her public, iconic image alone. Dozens gathered at the Basilica of Saint Bonaventure in Leon for a pet blessing ceremony held in honor of Saint Francis of Assisi. The church has been hosting the annual event since 2024, celebrating the patron saint of ecology and his love for animals and nature. Still to come on DD News. Indian student shot dead in Texas, United States. Indian diaspora unites across 100 countries at Viksit Bharat Run 2025. And automobile giant Maruti Suzuki hails the recent GST reforms. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will make his first official visit to India on 8th and 9th October. India's Ministry of External Affairs said in a statement on Saturday that during the visit on October 9th in Mumbai, the two Prime Ministers will take stock of progress in diverse aspects of India-UK comprehensive strategic partnership in line with the Vision 2035. It would be focused and time-bound, 10-year roadmap of programs and initiatives in key pillars of trade and investment, technology, innovation, defense, security, climate and energy, health, education, people-to-people ties. Both leaders will engage with businesses and industry leaders on opportunities presented by India-UK Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, that's CETA, as a central pillar of future India-UK partnership. They will also exchange views on issues of regional and global importance. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Starmer will also attend the 6th edition of the Global FinTech Fest in Mumbai and deliver the keynote addresses. The leaders will also engage with the industry experts, policymakers and innovators. The visit will build on the momentum and substance generated by the visit of Prime Minister Modi to the UK in July this year. It will provide a valuable opportunity to reaffirm the shared vision of India and the United Kingdom to build a forward-looking partnership. An Indian student from Hyderabad who went to the US for higher studies was shot dead by miscreants in Texas. The victim, Chandrasekhar Paul, was reportedly working part-time at a gas station in Denton, Texas, where the incident occurred. Expressing grief over the demise of the student, Consulate General of India in Houston said, and I quote, "Deeply condole the tragic death of Mr. Chandrasekhar Paul, from an Indian student from Hyderabad who was killed in a shooting incident in Denton, Texas. We are in touch with the family and extending all possible assistance. Local authorities are investigating the incident and we are following up closely with them." Continuing the journey towards Viksit Bharat Run has become a platform for diaspora engagement and youth mobilization. Indian missions and posts have partnered with community groups, cultural bodies, local organizations worldwide to showcase collective efforts towards nation building. We get you some glimpses of the activities carried out in celebration of the vision of self-reliant India. The next generation of GST reforms are expected to play a key role in accelerating India's growth story and bring relief to the poor and the middle class. Maruti Suzuki, India's passenger vehicle giant, says the impact of Prime Minister Modi's GST bonanza has been historic. I spoke with a senior officer at Maruti Suzuki earlier. The new GST reforms have brought down the tax rate on various goods and services, benefiting all sections of society. To talk about the impact on the automobile sector, joining me is Prasar Bharati, Senior Executive Director, Corporate Affairs at Maruti Suzuki. Maruti Suzuki is the largest passenger car maker in India. Rahul, welcome to DD India.
Thank you, Shubhendu. Happy to be here.
First, can you give us a picture of how the recent GST tax reforms and relief has benefited you and your customers, especially this festive season?
Absolutely. So, Shubhendu, this is a historic high for us, and we really have to thank the Honorable Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. The sales have been very good. Customers have lapped up. And for example, in the festive season, first 8 days of the Navratras, we've done a record 1.65 lakh car deliveries, which is probably more than double than the deliveries in the same period last year. Even in terms of bookings, we have a higher number of bookings, and we're working fund days to make sure that we have sufficient cars available for these deliveries ahead.
Rahul, there have been significant milestones for Prime Minister Modi's vision for Make in India, Make for the World. For example, I learned Suzuki, a Japanese multinational, is manufacturing in India and exporting to Japan and rest of the world. How do you map the rise of India's manufacturing and exports potential in the sector?
Sure. So I think Make in India, Make for the World is extremely strategic because it helps us expand our GDP. It takes our manufacturing sector ahead, and we are able to, capture global demand. And the Maruti Suzuki have been perfectly aligned with it. We've identified exports as a strategic focus, and we are doing now about 1 lakh a quarter, which we were doing about 4 years ago. We were doing 1 lakh a year. So 4 times in about 4.5 years. And this September, for example, our exports grew 52%, 42,000 cars. And this year, we'll probably be closing more than 4 lakh car exports in the year. So, for example, on EV, Suzuki Motor Corporation has decided that their global manufacturing hub will not be in Japan, but in India and Gujarat. And from India, we are exporting to more than 100 countries of the world. So India is the new global manufacturing hub for MNCs like at least Suzuki Motor Corporation. And they're so happy manufacturing in India and importing back into Japan. Japan is now our second largest export destination.
And finally, there are many challenges facing the global economy. What is your assessment of the road ahead for the Indian economy with Prime Minister Modi's message of Swadeshi and self-reliance?
I think the scale and the heterogeneity which India has, it's extremely important to have self-reliance and Atmanirbhar, as you rightly said. We need to secure our global value chains. We see a lot of envoys and a wave of protectionism and tariff wars, etc. It will cause some headwinds, but fortunately, the big anchorage about India is domestic demand. And it's doing very strong. The Indian economy, the GDP growth rate, we revised it upward to 6.8%. I think India is in a very, very enviable spot as compared to the rest of the world.
On that note, Prasar Bharati, thank you for speaking with DD India.
Thank you, Shubhendu.
Moving on, India and Australia are coming together for the 4th edition of Austra-Hind, a joint bilateral military exercise that is set to take place between 13th to 26th of October. The exercise will take place in Irvine Barracks, the city of Perth in the state of Western Australia, with over hundreds of troops from both sides. The exercise aims to further strengthen operational capabilities of both the armies in an undertaking joint company level operation in urban and semi-urban terrain under United Nations mandate. Shri Mata Vaishno Devi Yatra has been temporarily suspended as precautionary measure in view of the inclement weather conditions and adverse weather advisory. The Met Department has predicted widespread light to moderate rains, thunderstorms, lightning and snowfall in the upper reaches of Jammu and Kashmir from 5th to 7th October. The Shrine Board has thus appealed to devotees to refrain from undertaking the pilgrimage during this period and to stay updated through official channels regarding resumption of the Yatra. The Yatra is expected to resume on 8th October, subject to improvement in weather conditions and clearance from the authorities. Pilgrims already present in Katra and along the Yatra routes are being provided with all necessary facilities, including shelter, food, medical assistance. Authorities have also advised the public to avoid venturing near water bodies, rivers and steep tracks during this period of adverse weather. Let's now take a look at other stories making news today. Unique Identification Authority of India waived off all charges for mandatory biometric update for children aged 7 to 15 on Saturday, a move that is expected to benefit around 6 crore children. The waiver of MBU charges came into effect on 1st of October, will remain in force for a year. Indian government amended the National Highways fee rules on Saturday. Under the new rule, vehicles entering a fee plaza without a valid functional FASTag will be charged twice the applicable user fee for cash payments, while 1.25 times for payments via UPI. The new rules will come into effect from 15th of November. Haryana's Chief Minister Nayaab Singh Saini launched the Meri Sadak mobile app on Saturday to enable citizens to report road issues like potholes, waterlogging directly to the government. The app uses GIS technology for real-time road mapping, aims to improve transparency and accountability in road repairs. The Central Command of the Indian Army in Himachal Pradesh's Goa village dedicated a 90-foot national flag to the unsung sentinels guarding India's frontiers. The flag overlooks the Himalayan valley as a symbol of courage and silent duty of the Indian Army. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma on Saturday distributed cheques worth Rs 10,000 to over 37,000 women under Mukhyamantri Mahila Udyamita Abhiyan in Assam's Biswanath. The scheme aims to boost women entrepreneurship in rural areas through support for activities like goat rearing, poultry and dairy farming. Still to come on DD India News Hour. World Bank chief economist says India has the highest revenue to GDP ratio among emerging economies. India added 3 medals to their tally on the penultimate day of World Para Athletics Championship. And Vietnam is all set to host its first World Culture Festival.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout ho gaya.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's look at some business stories. World Bank's chief economist for South Asia, Franziska Horsga, has said India has the highest revenue to GDP ratio among the emerging economies. Talking to DD India, Horsga, who is in New Delhi for Kautilya Economic Conclave, spoke about the growth opportunities for India, highlighting the importance of market access to other countries through various trade agreements. She also spoke about the big opportunities in services exports and goods exports. Here's more.
With us, we have a very special guest to talk about the economies of South Asia, the Chief Economist of World Bank for South Asia, Franziska Horsga. Ma'am, thank you so much for speaking with us. You're here at the Kautilya Economic Conclave. What is your view on the conclave that's taking place in Delhi?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
What is special about Kautilya is the breadth of views you hear. So you have a lot of Indian, very big voices in India, very credible and international voices from India, but you also have the experience from Asia, Japan, China, Korea. You have the experience from Europe, and it's fantastic to see them all compare notes. You can see all these experiences come together.
Right. Ma'am, you have given a presentation here at Kautilya Economic Conclave about the economies and other things. So what is it about?
I take two examples of opportunities, not because they're the only ones, but because they're relevant to foreigners, because foreigners tend to want to invest in tradables. So services exports and goods exports. So first on services exports, something extraordinary is happening in computer services since the release of ChatGPT. Right. So it is clear evidence that at least the BPO sector is enthusiastically embracing artificial intelligence. We can see it in the job postings data. And that sector seems to be transforming. But at the same time, computer services exports have increased much faster than overall exports, so by 30% since the release of ChatGPT, whereas overall services exports have only increased by 10%, much less. So there seem to be real opportunities in services export emerging. And in a way, India is well placed to benefit from digital services, including AI, because the Government Readiness Index by Oxford Insights is much higher. India scores much higher than the average emerging market and developing economy. Actually closer to an advanced economy, the average advanced economy, than the average emerging market. So that's one opportunity, services export. The other opportunity is in goods exports. Right. Trade agreements go far beyond tariffs. Tariffs are just the tip of the iceberg. They give market access. The UK agreement that's already been agreed, the EU agreement that's under discussion, Australia, Canada, perhaps the US. If all these agreements actually came through and increased market access, Indian manufacturers would have access to 50% of global GDP, comparable to Vietnam and Mexico. Right. So there's a real opportunity. If this materializes, this could transform India's manufacturing.
Ma'am, you have also worked and talked about revenue to total GDP ratio and how is it comparable to the international standard as well as South Asian standard? What do you have to say about that?
That is one commonality across South Asia. That's revenue to GDP ratios are well below the emerging market and developing economy average. India's is actually the highest in South Asia, one of the highest.
So that was Francisca Onsorga speaking to us about the Kautilya Economic Conclave, how the South Asian economies and in particular India can really take off with certain changes in the structure of the economy. With camera person Raj Tikki, I'm Akshay Dongri, DD India. With us, we have a very special guest to talk about the economies of South.
India's Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia graced the special edition of the Fit India Sundays on Cycle campaign in New Delhi on Sunday. The special edition was named World Teachers' Day, where Minister Mandavia led hundreds of teachers, students and citizens in a cycling rally. The event paid tributes to teachers, recognized their role in shaping young minds, inspiring future champions. The initiative promotes cycling as a sustainable, inclusive and eco-friendly form of exercise with numerous health benefits.
आज मुझे खुशी है देश में 10,500 से अधिक स्थानों पर हमारे देश के टीचर्स शिक्षक आज संडे ऑन साइकिल के साथ जुड़े स्वदेशी का संदेश दिया साथ में संडे ऑन साइकिल से देश के नागरिक को और स्टूडेंट को संदेश दिया है कि जीवन में संतुलन बनाना बहुत आवश्यक है.
India takes on Pakistan in a high-voltage clash at the Women's Cricket World Cup in Colombo. Today, Indians are high on confidence after winning their opening match, while Pakistan lost the first match of the tournament. The two sides have met 11 times in the 50-over format, with Indian women winning on all occasions. Here's more.
Sri Lanka, the pearl of the Indian Ocean, is not just a tourist destination with scenic beauty, but it's now becoming a hub of steaming cricketing action. Colombo, the capital city, is hosting ICC Women's Cricket World Cup, which is attracting eyeballs from across the globe. And up next is the much-awaited India versus Pakistan group stage clash in the ODI format. The Indian women's team opened the tournament with a victory in its kitty against Sri Lanka at Guwahati. The match not only won hearts but also surpassed the number of attendees inside the stadium. And talking about their upcoming clash against arch rivals Pakistan, Team India has been the heavily dominant side, with the women in blue impressing in both ODIs and T20Is. The two sides have met 11 times in the 50-over format, with India winning on all occasions in a display of sheer dominance. Players like Smriti Mandhana remain the key strength, while Team India's overall lineup is a mix of experience, agility, and loads of passion.
While Smriti Mandhana is just few runs away to make it a historic 5,000 run mark at the ODI Women's Cricket World Cup, a lot is in store for Harmanpreet Kaur and Deepti as well at this Women's Cricket World Cup to make not only just victories, memories, but also new records. With free entry and an intense match on the plate, a lot is expected out of the India versus Pakistan ODI Women's Cricket World Cup clash, where India already holds the upper hand. With camera person Gaurav Giri, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Colombo.
And Deepika Mathur is joining us live from Colombo with more. Deepika, while India has a clear edge over Pakistan, every match is a new game. What kind of contest are we looking at today? All right, there seems to be some connection issue. We'll connect with Deepika in just a bit again. The big match coming up today, India versus Pakistan in Women's World Cup. Our correspondent Deepika Mathur getting us the update. Deepika, am I audible to you? Can you hear me? All right, there appears to be some connection issue. We'll try and connect with Deepika later again. We are looking at the India-Pakistan contest. Let's move on to the next story as to what has happened in this World Cup so far. The league stage match between defending champions Australia and Sri Lanka at the Women's Cricket World Cup was abandoned without a ball bowled in Colombo. The toss was initially delayed due to wet outfield. Then, due to persistent rain and wet outfield, the game was called off hours after the scheduled start. Both the teams take 1 point from the encounter, which saw the Australian women's cricket team move to the top of the table, while Sri Lanka have picked up their first point of the tournament. Australia will next face Pakistan on Wednesday in Colombo, while Sri Lanka will host England in a week's time. More sports news. India added 3 medals to their tally on the penultimate day of World Para Athletics Championship in New Delhi to mark their best performance in the championship's history. Ekta Bayan produced a season-best performance of 19.80-meter throw to finish second in the women's club throw F51 final. In the men's shot put F57, Soman Rana earned his maiden championship medal, throwing 14.69 meters to finish second, while Paris Paralympics champion Praveen Kumar took bronze in the men's high jump T64. The 3 medals on Saturday took India's overall tally to 18. That's 1 more than their 17 medals haul at the previous edition in Japan. As the vibrant rhythms, colors and traditions from around the world come together in Hanoi, Vietnam is all set to host its first World Culture Festival, which is set to begin from October 10th at the Thang Long Imperial Citadel. Not only celebrates diversity, but also strengthens the spirit of unity and friendship among nations. That's all in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on your screen and download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.